Most practices are spending more than ever to acquire new patients, while an entire generation is building trust with brands long before they ever step into a clinic. Welcome back to the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm your host, Don Adeesha, and to help us understand how to connect with the next generation of patients, we are joined by Dr. Whitney Havnik. Dr. Havnik is a double board certified dermatologist and fellowship trained Mohs surgeon based in Reno, Nevada. Alongside her clinical work in skin cancer and cosmetic dermatology, she is building a sun care brand designed specifically for Gen Z, focused on education, prevention, and real behavior change. Today, we are discussing Gen Z behavior. We are talking about building trust through prevention and how to turn that trust into long-term patient relationships. This episode is brought to you by Equimarketing, the digital growth partner behind this podcast and a trusted resource for aesthetic practices looking to dominate their local market. Now, let's get into the conversation. Dr. Havnik, when you started building for Gen Z, what gap did you see in how traditional sun care brands were approaching young consumers?
Hi, well, thank you for having me. And I've been a dermatologist for a long time. I've sold product in my office for a long time. And what I saw is that we really didn't have anything in the office that was fun and exciting for that younger patient. We have beautiful products and they're very clinical. So I personally have two daughters. They've had access to the best sunscreens their whole lives because when you're a dermatologist, your mom is giving you the best sunscreens, and they would still say, ugh, I don't want this. So I knew that we needed to address this a little bit differently because we all know how important sun protection is. So I wanted to bring something into the clinical space that was a little bit bold, a little edgy, and made them feel more comfortable in choosing to wear something that just wasn't necessarily your mother's sunscreen.
And was that gap more about the formulation, or is it the communication, how the brands talk?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think Gen Z wants a different product. I think they want simplicity. They want products that are going to serve both as skincare and sun protection. And those products are out there. They exist. They exist in the clinical space currently. But a lot of times they're also at a price point that's not accessible to that younger consumer. So we saw an opportunity to create a sun care line with skincare benefits that was going to address all of this and put it at a price point that was going to be more Gen Z friendly. Oftentimes they're in their first job, they're going to college, they don't have a lot of disposable income, and they will spend money on skincare. But when we're asking them to make something part of their daily routine, I strongly believe we should present it to them at a price point that's going to be accessible.
Check. Now, as a Mohs surgeon, what is the one thing traditional brands get medically wrong when trying to be trendy?
Well, that's funny. I think sometimes if you overdo it, it's hard to talk to to Gen Z and Gen Alpha. My kids have literally their own language. They're like, Mom, that's the Riz, the tea. And I'm like, I don't know. Is that good or bad? So I think you need to speak to them, but not necessarily try to be them. But you want to build their trust and say, look, this is going to help your skin. They don't necessarily care at this point about not getting skin cancer. They care about their skin looking good, feeling good. They want to be pretty. They want to glow up. My daughter told me at one point, oh, the reason girls want to tan is because they don't want to have the winter fuglies. Right? So they're very concerned about their appearance. And I think as a brand, you want to say, not only will this product protect you, but it's going to make you feel good and it's going to enhance that inner glow and outer glow. So I think you just have to be careful not to be preachy, but also not try too hard. There's a balance.
Not try too hard. How was that in your own product development?
Well, the good thing is I have my own test space in my house. And so in not trying too hard, we don't want to overcomplicate the messaging. We want to say, these products are there. We want them integrated into your life. They feel great on your skin. And our names are a little different, but we want to make those names of our products just to, give them a little bit of that. I'm again, a little edgy, a little different. That's why we have products called Cheeky, OG, Ghosted, Do Me, Face Shots. so that they catch your attention, but they're not, I'm not calling this the, get your tea, get your Riz, all these other Gen Z words. It's translating to them without trying too hard to be them, if that makes sense.
Mm. That does. And so the gap you really saw was a big gap in communication as well as, really product positioning in the marketplace as well. Now, Dr. Havnik, how do you practically make sun protection feel relevant to Gen Z in their daily lives?
Right. That's always a challenge. You have to make it something that they're going to want to wear, whether it's how it makes their skin feel, how it makes their skin look. Because, like I said, I don't think that they're so concerned at this point about cancer. Unless somebody in their family has gone through skin cancer, they live in this space of it's not going to happen to me. I know I was a teenager and I was terrible about sun protection when I was a teenager, and now the consequences are there. So you have to just make it feel seamless. Again,
Mm.
making the product not feel so much like an extra step in their routine, but the one step that they
Mm.
actually want to wear. So that when they put it
Mhm.
on, they see the difference in their skin immediately, whether it's with hydration or that little glow or shimmer, or they put it on and their skin feels better because they're not feeling that it's not tight and sticky. So it's not going to feel like a
Mm.
chore. It's going to feel like something they want in their routine.
Okay. And now, that sensory experience you just mentioned, feeling better immediately, how long did that take for you to really develop it to that level where you were happy with it?
So that was really the first thing we knew when we went into product development, that the first thing that people do is they put it on their skin, they want to see how it feels, and then the second thing they do is they smell it, right? So that sensorial experience is very important. Obviously, they're going to pick up a bottle and that bottle is going to give them some information like this is a mineral sunscreen, SPF. So it took a while for us to get to the right formulation because we literally went and tried every single mineral sunscreen available on the market. And we were very, we only do zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. We don't use other filters. And we knew that a big pain point for people about why they wouldn't use sunscreen was stickiness, chalkiness, pasty. So we took every single mineral sunscreen on the market, tried it in a very scientific way where we were putting it on our skin and then doing just those things. Does it feel sticky? Does it smell? And from that, we really benchmarked what we wanted our product to look like and feel like.
Mhm.
Because we know if you put something on your skin and you don't like the way it feels, it doesn't matter if it's the best product on the planet, you're not going to use it. And so it's very important to get that right. And luckily we were able to, and we're very proud of that. I think what makes me so happy is when people try the products and they say, I didn't know that sunscreen could feel like this.
Wow, that is definitely a wonderful compliment when you're trying to make the product which has been notorious for being otherwise sticky, pasty, just sticks out, right?
Right, right.
Now, Dr. Havnik, what actually gets a young patient to really change their sunscreen habits in real life?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, if their friends are doing it, they'll do it, right? They trust their peers. And so you have to have champions in that space. You have to have people trying your products, liking your products, and then telling their friends about that. And I think that that's so important. And we miss that sometimes in this audience. They're going to trust each other more than they trust you. Even as a dermatologist, I think it gives me some credibility when I tell somebody that they should use a product, but they really
Right.
then look to their peers for advice, which is why platforms like Instagram and TikTok have become such a source of information for the Gen Z consumer.
Mm.
And so it's building that trust, it's building that experience, which is very hard when you're communicating digitally. If you're, just on TikTok talking about a product, you really got to get them to feel it and see it, which is not always feasible. But when their peers like it and when their peers are telling them that this is something that they should do, they're much more likely to listen. Also, I think you need to not be preachy. So I would feel that as a dermatologist and as a member of dermatologic societies, we often tell people
Mhm.
to stay out of the sun, to wear all these things. And the reality is they're going to go out into the sun. They're going to go out and they're going to try to tan. Our whole thing is please use our products so you don't burn because we do know, yes, of course, tanning causes UV damage. However, sunburns, true sunburns, like the ones you see on TikTok, these horrible blistering sunburns, double your risk of melanoma. Just one sunburn like that. And so it's really, addressing this population and gaining their trust. But this is also why in our product development in our company core, we're very focused on education and we're utilizing college age students to help us spread our message on campuses. We have our brand ambassadors not only talk about our products, but also go into on campus organizations such as sororities to give presentations on skin cancer and sun health. Because when the message comes from your peers, again, you're going to be more likely to listen. And I did this a lot as a resident. We would go to sororities at the University of Missouri and talk about sun protection. And, at that point, I was a little bit too much of an I can't speak, authoritative figure because I was already a doctor, right? So it's even better when it's a student going in and talking to other students. So it's really
Mhm.
a different approach that we're taking to use peers, educate, and not just sell sunscreen. We're really selling a mission of skin protection and skin health.
Selling the mission. What is the main difference that you see from your time as a resident? You know, educating even at that time, perhaps to a certain degree, your peers, um, but you were a doctor then, versus now, where they're college students going and educating their own peers. What is the core difference in the messaging that you're seeing?
These girls are and yeah, and boys are getting hit from so many different sources with information. I did my residency in the Facebook days. That's all we had, right? We didn't have there was no Instagram, certainly no TikTok. And so people still trusted, journals and other things. And now they're getting from all of these sources, getting all kinds of different information. Sunscreen causes cancer. You can use this, like beef tallow as sunscreen and all these different things. Um, and so it's trying to debunk some of these myths and also present to them information that they will then hopefully believe in. Because if they believe the myths, they may not believe you,
Mhm.
really. You have to frame the conversation so that you can be the expert, but also make it, believable and real so that they understand that you're there to help them and not just, tell them to do something. Because I have a 15-year-old. I certainly know if I tell her to do something, she certainly does not want to do it.
Right, unless she truly believes in the mission.
Right. Or unless, if her best friend tells her to do it, she'll do it. But also, that's the other thing. By making our sunscreen a little like, have fun names and have fun
Mhm.
taglines, the kids they pay attention, which is great. And then hopefully they just choose to use it on their own.
Now, that premise of instant gratification, even through messaging itself, but also through the look and feel of it, have you found that it works much more better than the fear of cancer decades from now on?
I think so. I think, that's always my mission is, hey, you're going to get cancer. But I will tell you, as a Mohs surgeon, I cut out cancer all day long. I can be removing cancer on somebody in that moment, asking them if they wear sunscreen. And they're like, no, I don't. And I'm like, I'm making a hole in your face. Are you planning to wear sunscreen? No, so it's a very strange thing. Some people, yes, but I do remember distinctly doing two Mohs surgeries on a 27-year-old man who told me he was not going to wear sunscreen, and I'm like, okay. um, so I think that you just have to know that you're not going to be able to convince everybody, but certainly that immediate benefit of like it makes your skin feel good, it's giving you a little sparkle and glow. That is actually going to get them to wear it more than, hey, you might get melanoma and die.
Check.
Yeah.
Uh, that's very interesting. And 27-year-old most patient, that's another number. That's
Yeah,
also
I
interesting.
treat a lot of 20-year-olds, 20 to 30-year-olds. It's amazing through the years. I feel like when I first started, most of my skin cancer patients were older, not necessarily, I mean, most I would say were between the ages of 60 to 90. And, but now routinely every week I have patients in their 30s, 40s. 20s are still somewhat rare, but it happens.
Mm.
And and a lot of it is childhood sunburns, teenage tanning bed use. It's amazing to me that in this day and age that people are still using tanning beds, and but it's real. They're on college campuses. There is an apartment complex across from the university here that is not owned by the university, but they attract university students and they attract them with benefits like a gym and a pool and tanning beds. So, and they're in a lot of our local fitness centers. I was absolutely shocked when I found out that this was still happening because I thought we as a society had made a better impact
Yeah.
on educating people that according to the World Health Organization, tanning beds are considered they're a carcinogen. And
Yeah.
these girls are like, oh yeah, I go to the tanning bed. What have we been doing? Like, how have we missed that message? So it's an interesting thing because I feel like as dermatologists, for a while we were doing a better job of impacting those people, and especially people in their late 20s, early 30s. They seem to really have gotten it and they're good about sun protection. But now, as you go down into the late teens, early 20s, it's like there's a whole different perception. And people, as you know, they use the UV index not to protect themselves from the sun, but to tan. And there's apps that will tell you how to get that best tan. I mean, it's a thing. And this is something that I grew up with in the 90s. Obviously, tanning was huge. And
That's right.
again, I just don't think we've done a great job of translating that message because it's still happening. And I get it, everybody there's this perception that you look better when you're tan. They feel thinner, prettier, but they don't understand that there's long-term consequences.
Especially when done through a tanning bed.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
That's
live at a high altitude climate and I would so much rather if you're going to go out, please put some sunscreen on and go outside. Do not go into one of those death chambers. I hate them. I mean, again, it blows my mind that people still use them.
check. Right. Now, before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor, Equa Marketing. If you're a practice owner looking to attract more high value patients, Equa is offering our Business of Aesthetics listeners a complimentary marketing strategy session. This is a personalized session built around your practice. Their team spends about 4 to 5 hours researching your online presence, your competition, and your biggest growth opportunities before the meeting. So you'll walk away with a tailored plan and not just generic advice. On the call, they'll show you how to improve visibility, increase qualified patient inquiries, and build a clear path to measurable growth. There are only a limited number of spots available each month. To reserve your session, visit businessofesthetics.org/MSM. I'll repeat that one more time, businessofesthetics.org/MSM. Now, let's get back to our conversation. Dr. Havnik, where do most brands lose Gen Z when they try to build trust around skincare?
Yeah, I think that, there's certainly price becomes a consideration. I think if you are building a good product, there's just a certain price point that Gen Z is not going to purchase. And then I think also just not being for them. Then when brands are obviously there are wonderful skincare brands out there. I am a full supporter of all these brands that we carry in the office, but they don't necessarily resonate. Now, some of them do, right? There's this thing kind of like, oh, I'm using real skincare now. I'm an adult. So there's definitely that level of appreciating that clinical product. But I think a lot of it comes down to not wanting something too complicated, simplicity,
Hmm.
and then obviously cost. Cost is really, I
Yeah.
think, a huge
Yeah.
deterrent. And Gen Z obviously is going into the medical space now, the med spa space especially. They're going in for hydrofacials and microneedling and Botox. And I was speaking with a colleague about the
Hmm.
number of cosmetic procedures that get done in med spas near the University of Arizona. And I think, gosh, when I was in college, I barely had enough money for food. And I certainly wasn't going in and getting Botox, but it's happening. There's a market for it. But I think also when you go in and you're getting a procedure, let's say you're getting Botox, and then the products that you want to buy product, right? You're a consumer. I do distinctly remember wanting to go to the dermatologist here in Reno as a medical student and get this sunscreen. And it was because I had heard it was so good and I was willing to go pay for that. So they love product recommendations by their treatment providers, by their doctors. But if you've just paid, let's say, $400 or $500 for Botox, and then you go to the counter and they're like, you should have this serum and this sunscreen and this, and it's just as much money as that Botox treatment, I think you lose their trust. Because there is this point where, again, they want to buy from you, but they want to know that you're not trying to like just squeeze every penny out of them. And then they won't buy, and then they're like, I don't know, there's just sort of this feeling of like, ugh, why did they try to push that product on me? Even if it's very unintentional and you're thinking, I want this
That's right.
person on a good skincare routine, but there's that certain level that just becomes too much for them. And then they won't buy, and then they'll go buy at a retailer, and sometimes and as the person doing treatments, you actually want to know what they're using on their skin. So I think it's nice to
Hmm.
have an in-office offering that's going to be at a price point that they can afford. And that way, too, when they come back in, if they say that there's an issue, you can say like, what products are you using, and have and know where they came from, because that's really important. A lot of times people will get a treatment, let's say microneedling, and then they'll go out and they'll get a rash because they'll use something on their skin that they shouldn't have.
And this sort of upselling, um, how did you figure out that, what was the pricing that was comfortable with your target audience? How did you figure that out?
Well, we see who the big players are in the sunscreen space, and we saw with how they were pricing their products, and we actually decided we wanted to be just under them. And these are not the big players in the clinical space. These are the big players at places like Target or Sephora, Ulta. And so we decided that we would even, come in. Mineral sunscreens are actually very expensive to formulate. So the price point we are at is actually higher than where we wanted to be, but just for practical reasons, that's where you have to be. But
Mhm.
there's, knowing like what they were paying across the space for things like moisturizers and other sunscreens, we felt like we were at a good point where we're still a little bit of a luxury item, but we're
Mhm.
also giving them additional skincare benefits with that product.
That's right. Uh, Now, when a brand tries a bit too hard in using Gen Z slang, does that actually erode the clinical credibility that they need to have?
Yeah, I think it's a fine line, right? Like most of us are not, I'm not Gen Z. I don't want to pretend to be Gen Z. Now, we talk to a ton of Gen Z in our focus groups, in our brand ambassadors, like I said, in my own kids. So I think, yeah, you want to be authentic. Gen Z wants authenticity. So that's also why I'm never going to go on social media and try to speak like a Gen Zer, right? Like it would sound so fake. Again, like I don't even get what
Different.
my daughters are saying to me when they tell me this stuff. I'm like, somebody needs a Gen Z dictionary. So I can still be a clinical authority, but I
Mhm.
want to be myself and talk to
Yeah.
them. But you don't want to talk down to them. You're not trying to, they're not kids anymore. They're looking for answers. But again, if
Mhm.
I'm like trying too hard, it's obvious, right? And they're going to say, like that's why we have other voices on our social media that are Gen Z that can help translate.
Mhm.
So that as the dermatologist and founder, I'm not again trying to be somebody who I'm not.
Mhm. It's really a matter of communicating where they're at,
Right.
and delivering that authenticity. I think I'm a millennial myself, so I mean, I might be also missing out on some of these Gen Z stuff. But like you say, Dr. Hofnick, it's really meeting where they're at instead of seeing this as kind of like a gimmick. I think that's where a lot of brands really uh, drop the ball.
Well, and this is a
Yeah.
critical
Now,
time in their life for sun protection. Really, truly, the sun you get in these like late teens, early 20s, it's going to impact you for the rest of your life. And so it's so important that it's like we say, if you're going to do one thing, right, wear some
mhm,
sunscreen,
mhm,
right? Because it will
mhm.
make a difference. We know it will make a difference. And so again, we're trying to deliver that message, but still make it feel like they're choosing to
Yeah,
do what they're going to do and also give them a really good product. So they're like, oh, I'm happy to wear this. My skin looks great when I use it.
that's right. The first time around, it might be a friend of theirs that'll recommend the product, but the second time around, it's their decision. So
Right.
they're the ones who are going to decide if the product is worth
Hmm.
revisiting. Now, Dr. Havnik, if a practice owner wants to earn credibility with Gen Z today, what is the first move that they should make?
I think just really being open to conversations with your audience, being real, not trying too hard, like we've talked about, and serving as a source of education. I think that again, when if a practice owner is going to start trying to address the Gen Z market segment, first of all, you have to have product offerings and you have to have treatment offerings that are not going to totally be a turnoff. If they walk into your office and they're like, "Oh, I want, laser treatment on my scars," and it's $2,000 a treatment, it's not going to work. I've done a lot of laser on acne scars through the years. And I was always very firm about keeping those treatments at a price point that wasn't going to break the bank for families. As a young person coming in, laser treatments are expensive, but I would, if I was doing for like Fraxel on acne scars, we had a
Mhm.
price for like a half face treatment that's very different than a full laser resurfacing of the whole face, and really trying to make sure that you're thinking about these things. Now, obviously, the practice can't take a loss, but I think having a wide variety of treatment offerings, things like microneedling, facials, different aesthetic procedures that are going to be good introductions to the practice, and then also having people in the practice who can relate to that customer. I think they can be your best asset because they understand their peers again. But also, having that, the dermatologist or the dermatology provider or med spa provider being there as a source and as a credible source, so that then when they go in and spend the money, they know that they're getting treatments that are of value.
That's right. Now, let's say if they come in for acne scars to your practice, that being the gateway treatment perhaps for Gen Z, and then how do you start building that long-term revenue relationship?
Well, if they come to you, let's say you fix their acne scars, or let's say you even start before that. Let's say you treat their acne, right? I think then they trust you. So most of my cosmetic patients come from my dermatology patients, right? So whether they're Gen Z or not, either I've treated them for skin cancer, or I've treated their precancers, or I've treated their acne, then they're much more likely to put their trust in you for cosmetic procedures. So let's say that they're in their 20s and you treated them for acne scars and they got a good improvement. Then by the time they want Botox, who are they going to go to? They're going to go to the person that they trust. And then as they hit their 30s, 40s, and they want more laser procedures, or they want, other more expensive treatments, you've already started that relationship. So I think that it is about trust, it is about credibility, and when you're seeing these younger patients, give them options. When I talk to my patients about acne scars, for example, we are always talking about you can do laser, you can do microneedling, we can do peels, I give them a broad spectrum of treatments that are going to help. I'll give them my advice about what I think will help the most. But I also say, look, if you only have the ability to do something and you want to do, we can start with this and we can build upon it. It's also why I don't sell packages. I am very much, I don't. I will tell people, hey, I think it's going to be somewhere between 4 to 6 treatments, but we're going to reassess at every appointment and determine what is going to be your best next step. So they're not locked in to like 6 laser treatments. If they're great after 3, fine. I'll see you in 5 years when you want Botox.
Oh, okay. That's a very interesting take right there. Um, Dr. Havnik, as we wrap up the podcast session here, I would love for you to give our listeners a one last key takeaway, perhaps the golden nugget on how our practice owners can really connect with the Gen Z audience. What's the first step looking like?
Well, I think just again, be you. Be that practice. You've built your practice. Communicate with these patients. Talk to them in a way where they're going to get that connection with you, and also again, give them that range of services so that they can start to be a patient or customer in your practice. And I think also give them advice. They really, it takes having that conversation. They are coming to you because they're seeking advice for whatever reason, whether it's again acne scars or it's they've had eczema or something, but they're coming to you for help. So talk to them like you would talk to any patient as they're, in a manner where you're communicating well, and don't make that communication forced. They may not book an appointment. You might have a consultation and go through everything, and they may not do anything. But then if they've had that conversation with you, they're much more likely to come back when the time is right.
There we go. And that was a powerful look at how to build trust with the next generation of patients with Dr. Whitney Havnik. If you've been struggling to connect with younger audiences or wondering why your messaging is not landing, this conversation should give you a completely different lens. Winning Gen Z is not about louder marketing. It's about relevance, consistency, and meeting them long before they ever needed that treatment. Now, mastering this shift is how you build long-term patient pipelines in a market that is only getting more competitive. If Dr. Havnik's approach to prevention and education resonated with you, we highly recommend connecting with her and exploring her work, where she is helping redefine how practices engage patients early and more effectively. Dr. Havnik, where can our listeners reach you?
I'm always happy to answer by email. My email, which is Whitney at spooge.co. No M.
There we go. And before we wrap up, one final reminder from our sponsor, Echo Marketing. If you want a clearer plan for attracting more high-value patients, they are offering Business of Aesthetic listeners a complimentary marketing strategy session. Their team will review your online presence, identify missed growth opportunities, and give you a tailored action plan just for your practice. You can reserve your session at businessofesthetics.org/MSM. I'll repeat that one more time. Business of Aesthetics, that's one word, .org/MSM. I'm Don Adeesha, and this has been the Business of Aesthetics podcast. Thanks for listening. Keep on leading.